welcome to the show, still taking place inside this void, which I've actually nicknamed Mommy. Why have I done that? Well, because it's white, chilly, and wants me out of it as soon as possible. Happy Mother's Day, everyone! Now, obviously, many of us are still working from home. Even the Supreme Court is hearing arguments remotely, and this week it seems they had a little mishap.
What the FCC has said is that when the subject matter of the call ranges to the topics, then the call is transformed.
Yeah. Someone apparently flushed a toilet during the oral argument. And look, I get that working from home is a bit of an adjustment, but there is simply no excuse for that level of unprofessional... God damn it, not now! Daddy's filming the show. No pooping on show days. We've talked about this. We only poop on Tuesdays. That is it. Tuesdays, we poop all day. And Fridays, we all draw cards. And if you pull the ace of spades, you can do a bonus poop. But we do not poop on show days. Ever! Sorry about that. It was another busy week for the White House, although refreshingly, one of the biggest pieces of news was not actually coronavirus related.
29 months after leaving this courthouse in shame, following pleading guilty to lying to the FBI, the Justice Department that convicted Michael Flynn now seeking to throw out the case.
A crime cannot be established here. They did not have a basis for a counterintelligence investigation against Flynn at that stage.
Does the fact remain that he lied?
Well, people sometimes plead to things that turn out not to be crimes.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes people do plead to things that turn out not to be crimes, but sometimes they plead to things that are, like, I don't know, lying to the FBI, which is in a very real sense a fucking crime. It would have been different if Flynn had pled guilty to, let's say, constantly displaying the facial expression of someone whose lunch burrito isn't sitting quite right, or looking like G.I. Joe's emotionally withholding father. Those aren't crimes. Lying to the FBI, however, very much is, especially when you consider that what Flynn was lying about was his contacts with a Russian official, and the FBI was in the midst of a Russian counterintelligence investigation. And all of this is particularly worrying because this was a case brought by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, and the whole point of having a special counsel investigate was to keep the process free from conflicts of interest. By dropping these charges, Barr could be setting a dangerous precedent that a president could not just pardon the subject of an investigation, but have his appointees invalidate the investigation itself. It's a truly unheard of thing for an attorney general to do, but Barr really doesn't seem to give a fuck.
When history looks back on this decision, how do you think it will be written?
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
It takes a special kind of arrogance for the nation's top law enforcement official to say, actually, history's a lie we tell ourselves as we fall asleep at night. The world is nothing but formless chaos, and there is no truth but that which the strong impose upon the weak. You get it, right? You definitely get it. Now, as for the president himself, he spent the week continuing to manage the optics on his inability to manage the coronavirus, even travelling to a mask factory where he made the conspicuous choice not to wear a mask, prompting an entirely reasonable question the next day.
Mr. President, yesterday we went to Arizona, and you had said before the trip that you would likely wear a mask at the mask factory. You ended up not wearing one.
Well, I actually did have one.
We didn't see you with a mask.
Well, I can't help it if you didn't see me.
What are you talking about? I can't help it if you didn't see me. Of course you can. It's a photo op. The whole point is to show them the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Still, I will say this. For all of Trump's ideological wavering over the years, one thing has remained consistent. He's never used protection, and he's never not been an arsehole about it afterwards. But Trump's refusal to wear a face mask, despite the fact that since April 3rd, the CDC has recommended everyone wear them, seems especially unwise given that multiple White House staffers have now tested positive, which in turn makes one of the music choices for that mask factory tour even grimmer.
This is the material that traps the particulates.
Yeah, that was the Guns N' Roses cover of the song Live and Let Die, which is about as on the nose a soundtrack choice as you can possibly get without playing the Dead Kennedys' Kill the Poor. And it's a weird choice of song no matter what, but it's especially weird given that Axl Rose is no fan of this administration, even tweeting the very next day, "It's official, whatever anyone may have previously thought of Steve Mnuchin, he's officially an arsehole, which kicked off an incredible exchange in which Mnuchin responded by writing, "What have you done for your country lately?" accompanied by the Liberian flag, to which Axl Rose then replied in a single sentence, "My bad, I didn't get we're hoping to emulate Liberia's economic model, but on the real, unlike this admin, I'm not responsible for 70,000 plus deaths. Unlike you, I don't hold a federal government position of responsibility to the American people. Go on TV telling them to travel to the US during a pandemic." And there are many amazing things about that, but most of all, you've got to respect Axl's commitment to the I bet he takes his coffee with milk and sugar. When he gets dressed, he likes to put on a t-shirt and kilt. And I bet his favourite book is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, because he's a professional and his art is his life. But unfortunately, Trump's cavalier attitude seems to be trickling down, because some states are now letting stay-at-home orders expire, even though many of them don't meet the federal guidelines, suggesting they only reopen once cases begin to decline. And while that will almost certainly put American lives at risk, Trump's new tactic is to frame that as a positive.
All people are warriors in this country. Right now, we're all warriors. You're warriors, we're warriors. You could be with somebody, everything's fine, and then something happens to that person, and all of a sudden, you test positive. And we're all warriors together. I am, you are, we all are.
Oh, are we? That's interesting, because we don't actually have to be warriors here. And to the extent that we are, you don't need to be throwing us into battle unarmed before we have mechanisms set up to broadly test, isolate and trace cases of the virus. You can't just call everyone warriors and make their deaths not count. You get the sense that if God had told Trump about the flood, he wouldn't have bothered building the ark. He would have just tried to convince the animals they're all fish. We're all fish together now. I'm a fish, you're a fish, we're all fish. And Trump's allies are behind him on this call to action. One of his favourite Fox News hosts, Pete Hegseth, seen here showing off the carcass of an American flag that he murdered, took that idea and he ran with it.
I do think you're going to need that kind of ethos and that spirit to put freedom before fear. Healthy people getting out there, they're going to have some courage. And so I think that spirit, the American spirit, frankly, is in full supply and ready to go.
Oh, yeah. The American spirit is absolutely in full supply, if by American spirit you mean ghosts. Because we're churning out ghosts like it's 1918, baby. We're positively swimming in ectoplasm right here. I'm telling you, if you could wipe your arse with ghosts, the American people would truly want for nothing right now. The thing is, all this talk of Americans being brave warriors seems designed to make us accept deaths that we should be trying to prevent. And yet, this administration seems at times to be actively hostile to those prevention efforts, to the point that on Thursday we learned this.
As the president urges states to reopen, the CDC has prepared a draft roadmap to help restaurants, schools, churches, and others to do it safely. But today we learned the White House has rejected that draft.
The Associated Press, who was first to report the administration's hold on the guidelines, saying a CDC official told them the agency's scientists were told the document would, quote, never see the light of day.
Wow. Never see the light of day. It is hard to imagine just how draconian that is, or at least it was, before never seeing the light of day became the only thing on all our schedules. Honestly, tell me, what does the sun look like? Does it have cool shades and an attitude, or was that just something that we made up in the past? Because I sincerely can't remember. So this is where we are right now. Our wartime president has decided the only way to win this war is to draft every one of us, hide our battle plans, and hope that we're all brave enough not to notice that we've already surrendered. Or to put it much more succinctly, and to quote what seems to be one of his favourite songs, his plan to steer us through this pandemic is for him to live while letting a lot of us die. And now, this.
And now, Fox 4 Dallas's Steve Eager reads viewers' complaints out loud.
Next, the ongoing parade of people complaining about others. Millicent says she is in the medical field and doesn't like seeing people wearing gloves. Next, Mark in Weatherford wants some landlord love on the news. Why is it assumed the landlords have no bills to pay and they are rich? William wants somebody to wipe down credit card keypads he is about to use. Eric now has a deep state cover-up. Lonnie is sick of seeing sick people. Wendy lost her mind. Finally, some people just seem to be complaining to complain and they don't really know what's up, like this one from Colleen. I would like to know why you all only show the negative. With this virus, you know damn well this is a ploy to destroy our country from the inside. Why are there so many people outside today? Why don't you report about the flu? I'm appalled at the decision to allow massage parlors. And we all know what massage parlor really means. Mayor Jenkins has closed our beauty salons. If animals can still get groomed, this is a slap in the face to humans. Stephen Eager is a sick man. Tell him to leave viewers alone. Don't you realize how stupid most of the viewing audience is? Oh, I'm aware, Wendy.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns the US Postal Service, the organisation that would have delivered your Mother's Day card for today if you hadn't forgotten to mail one like an ungrateful sack of shit. The USPS provides valuable services from delivering mail and packages to brilliantly ruining TikTok videos.
All of that, her mama party girl, she just want to have fun too. They say you ain't wifey type, but I don't care.
How you doing?
That is excellent. From the wave to the laugh to the how you doing, every single part of that is great. I want that woman to interrupt every TikTok video. In fact, take this one of an orange cat involved in an interspecies orgy.
What?
Now, already very good, right? Exactly. Hard to improve upon. But watch this.
What?
Yeah, it's just instantly better. That's a cake on a cake right there. Keep crashing TikToks, you national fucking treasure. The Postal Service has a rich and storied history. It actually predates the founding of this country, and it has an obligation to bring mail to every single household, even transporting it to the bottom of the Grand Canyon by mule. Over the years, Americans have relied on it for a surprisingly wide variety of needs.
Country children often watch for the mailman. Just see what has come today. A big box with many holes in it. The box is full of baby chicks. Baby chicks don't have to eat or drink for a whole day after they're hatched, so they can travel safely through the mail.
It's true. You used to be able to send live baby chicks through the mail, and guess what? You still can. The Postal Service will transport all kinds of live poultry for you, including chickens, ducks, geese, and turkeys, which actually raises the question, why the fuck would I ever send a greeting card again when I could mail someone a birthday turkey, or a thank you duck, or a sympathy goose? Who wouldn't want a sympathy goose? I mean, sure, your nana's dead, but now you have a small goose, which is, and this is true, better. But the current pandemic is obviously making things very difficult for postal workers right now, as you probably know from seeing stories like these.
I am very worried, very worried. To the point that I worry about coming to work every day.
I don't want to contract it to bring it back to my family.
Do you feel like you're at risk every time you go to work?
Yes.
Can't say that it's not in the back of everybody's mind. There is a joke amongst the office, are we essential or sacrificial?
Holy shit, that is a dark joke. Most office humour is just on the level of working hard or hardly working, or someone's microwaving fish again, not will any of us die today, LMFAO. And those fears are not misplaced. Over 1,000 postal workers have tested positive for COVID-19 and more than 40 have died. But both in addition to and because of the ongoing pandemic, these workers are also having to grapple with another existential threat. The Postal Service may be about to go broke. The outgoing Postmaster General recently asked Congress for a total of $89 billion. And without financial help, the USPS may not make it past September without significant service interruptions, which is upsetting, especially during an election year, a census year, and a pandemic that has people housebound. And I know people do love to complain about the post office, but the truth is it does very important work, and many people really rely on it. Not just to receive packages, but in rural areas in particular, a post office can be a community hub that brings people together. Just listen to this postmaster in rural Colorado tell a heartwarming story with a bit of a twist.
Postmaster Berger says neighbors who live far apart run into each other at the post office. That's how everybody keeps in touch, including him.
It's provided me the opportunity to know these people in this town more than I ever thought I would know, even to the degree where sometimes on my lunch hour I find myself helping a neighbor bury his dog.
Okay, first, what? Second, excuse me? And third, just to circle back, the fuck? Also, you just said sometimes you help bury a dog. That's plural, meaning you've done it more than once. And helping someone do that once is a courtesy. But when it starts becoming a regular thing, you have to wonder why the neighbourhood dogs keep dying and why you're always there. The point is, at the worst possible time, this American institution is on the brink of collapse. So tonight, we thought it might be worth asking why that is and what can be done about it. And let's start with the fact that despite being part of the federal government, the Postal Service is actually a self-funded entity. It operates independently and is meant to pay for itself with the money that it makes from services and postage. That might help explain why over the years it's often tried to encourage stamp collecting with commercials like this.
Hey, what a kid stuck on stamp. They're stuck on stamp. It's fun to do, either by yourself or with your crew. Now prehistoric animals are on the scene. Stegosaurus, brontosaurus look real mean.
First, that song can get it. And also, kudos on featuring all the stamps that kids love, from those slammin' dino stamps to the dank get well stamp with irises to my personal favourite, the one that simply says lace making. And I think I speak for cool kids everywhere when I say there's simply nothing doper than a totally bitchin' lace stamp. I'm just worried it might be too cool. And you might think that you know why the Postal Service is in so much trouble, that the internet and email mean that people just don't use it as much. But that's not actually the main reason. In fact, experts believe it would still be turning a profit were it not for a 2006 law called the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act. Now, one of the things that it required was for the USPS to prepay healthcare benefits for retirees on a 50-year schedule, starting with an aggressive obligation to set aside over $5 billion a year for 10 years. That in itself was a massive burden to put on the Postal Service, but the law also limited its flexibility to raise money by putting price caps on major products like first-class mail. So they had massive new obligations to meet, even as their income was basically locked in place. Now, in hindsight, it seems like a pretty clear death sentence, which is what makes it so strange that it passed largely unnoticed at the time and with bipartisan support. And the effect was almost immediate, because the Postal Service went from reporting a net income of $900 million in 2006 to a loss of $3.8 billion just 3 years later. And good luck selling enough dope-ass lace stamps to get yourself out of that hole. So the truth is, the Postal Service's problems aren't entirely from the fact that we started using email or even the 2008 recession. In fact, it's been estimated that the stipulations of this one law have accounted for approximately 74% of their net losses since it passed. And that is despite them shedding over 100,000 jobs. And the fact they were so badly hobbled by an act of Congress makes it a little infuriating that some, like former Fox News commentator John Stossel, hold it up as a sign that government agencies are just naturally bloated and incompetent.
Another myth. Government can run the post office like a business.
But real businesses can't lose billions every year. 16 billion last year. FedEx, UPS, and others make billions because they innovate and cut costs.
Okay, there's a lot wrong with that, but he is right that FedEx is pretty good at innovating. For example, you've probably seen the arrow hidden in the FedEx logo, but did you know that for years there also used to be a swastika hidden in the D? Yeah, once you see it, like the arrow, you can't unsee it, but they took it out because businesses have to innovate. Now, what Stossel is advocating for there, and what many Conservatives would prefer, is for the Postal Service to be privatised. But there are some huge drawbacks to that idea. For starters, as you may have noticed, FedEx and UPS charge a fuck of a lot more to deliver than the Postal Service does. Also, those remote addresses that they are obligated to deliver to aren't just difficult to get to, they're not profitable. And in all likelihood, companies would cut those routes off, meaning a lot of people would lose access. And to his credit, John Stossel fully acknowledges that, although basically says in response, tough shit.
The Constitution says Congress has the power to establish post offices. It doesn't have to, and it doesn't have to deliver mail to all of America.
Who says there needs to be universal service? If I live way out in the boondocks, I can get email.
Now, It's hard to decide what I like least about that. His dismissive attitude towards rural Americans, the incorrect assumption that email is a decent substitute for the Postal Service, conveniently glossing over the fact that an estimated 42 million people lack access to broadband internet, or the unfortunate fact that John Stossel looks like what would happen if someone tried to Queer Eye Geraldo Rivera, but it didn't really work. And again, the Postal Service is a literal lifeline for many Americans. It reportedly delivered 1.2 billion prescriptions last year, including close to 100% of prescriptions from the VA. And while you might be able to buy medicine online, you can't actually download medicine from the internet. Now, to clarify, you can download the medicine, Jeremy Renner's collection of music-like noises from the internet, but, and this is very important, you shouldn't do that. And then there's the potential business impacts of privatisation. Small businesses would immediately be affected if service was reduced, like this rock engraving company in rural Kansas.
Fisher Rock is another company that uses the local post office to ship some of their smaller products.
Just about every day we mail out something. I hate to see them lose our post office in Home City. It's handy for businesses like myself just to run in there and get postage and mail out rocks.
Yeah. It would be a real shame if that business couldn't mail out its rocks, like this one that says, "Real women heart little wieners," or this one that says, "The grass is greener under my wiener." I mean, that's a perfect rock right there. If the Postal Service stopped delivering gut busters like that, it would be a fucking tragedy. Although, not for me to be honest, since I already bought mine, and I've got to say, it's definitely funnier in person. One of the funniest things about it is how genuinely heavy this is. And look, it's not just small businesses. Companies like FedEx and UPS often hand off their packages to the Postal Service for the last leg of the delivery, especially in rural areas. Amazon also contracts many of its deliveries out to it, and that, weirdly enough, brings us to one of the biggest things standing in the way of the USPS getting the federal assistance it so badly needs right now, because this guy has strongly opposed giving it sufficient aid, and many believe that that's because of its relationship with Amazon, owned of course by Jeff Bezos, who also owns The Washington Post, whose political coverage is hated by the president, who, as we know, makes policy decisions based on his never-ending game of 6 degrees of how is this about me. Just watch him try and explain why the Postal Service should not get federal help.
The Postal Service is a joke because they're handing out packages for Amazon and other internet companies, and every time they bring a package, they lose money on it. The post office should raise the price of a package by approximately 4 times because they don't raise them. For some reason, these people have been in there a long time, but for some reason, they're very cozy with some of these companies, and they don't raise the price of a package.
Okay, first, the Postal Service is not a joke. It delivers jokes, yes, and they are, as we know, absolutely hilarious, but it's not in itself a joke. Greener under my wiener. This is the funniest rock of all time. Jesus Christ. But second, if the Postal Service quadruples prices on companies, those package delivery costs will almost certainly be passed on to the consumer because they're companies and they don't give a shit. And third, it isn't cutting sweetheart deals to lose money on every delivery because, in addition to everything else we've already discussed, that 2006 law made it illegal for the USPS to price parcel delivery below its cost. So in summation here, Trump is absolutely convinced that the Postal Service's biggest problem is one of the few things that is not actually one of its problems. And that's not just annoying, it's really worrying, especially as just this week he replaced the outgoing Postmaster General with this guy, Louis DeJoy, a major Trump donor. And that appointment has worried many people that Trump may now be able to bend the Postal Service to his will, presumably meaning that by next year, every stamp in America will feature one of Jeff Bezos' dick pics. And the thing is, there are absolutely solutions that would enable the Postal Service to help themselves, but for all the reasons that we've discussed, their hands are tied when it comes to pricing on their main product, which may actually help explain some of their very weird side hustles. For instance, you can go on their website and buy this costume for your dog, which is a great way to make your dog look like it's performing a postal-themed rendition of Dick in a Box. Also, a few years back, they entered into a bizarre partnership with Forever 21 to unveil a Postal Service-themed fashion line, although, As this YouTuber will tell you, there were a few issues with their garments.
Oh my gosh. Why is any of this happening? It's like, yes, I am the priority. My boobs are the priority. Overall, I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 10.
Yeah. When you're wearing nothing but the word priority stretched over your chest, it's a little weird to realise that the answer to the question, why is any of this happening, is at least in part the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act of 2006. But look, branching out into fashion clearly won't save the Postal Service. That is why it is so important that they're given much more flexibility, not just on pricing, but also on the types of services they can offer. Now, experts suggest that the post offices could expand their services to issue things like hunting and fishing licenses. And perhaps the best option is something called postal banking, where the post office doesn't so much act as a bank as provide some very basic financial services like savings accounts and check cashing. That wouldn't just generate revenue, it could also help the estimated 25% of people in this country living in unbanked or underbanked communities who are often forced to turn to alternative financial services like payday lenders, which can charge up to 400% in fees and interest. And this wouldn't be completely out of the Postal Service's lane. Not only do they already provide some services like selling money orders, money transfers and prepaid cards, but up until the 1960s, they were already doing it.
Though 90% of its income is derived from the sale of stamps, the Post Office is also the largest savings bank in the country and the largest agency for the transfer of money. It takes in more than $1.5 billion annually.
You know, it's depressing that the weirdest thing about watching old-timey clips now isn't that they're in black and white or that people are wearing hats. It's that everyone is standing next to each other in a public place with no fear of dying. Honestly, at this point, I have such severe quarantine brain, I could wake up in the Jurassic period and my first thought would be, holy shit, those stegosauruses are standing way too close together. But look, postal banking is clearly more of a long-term solution. It won't get the USPS out of its current mess. What they badly need is an infusion of funding as soon as possible. And not only should we be demanding that they get that, Congress should also take a look at undoing some of the more onerous terms in that 2006 law. And until then, there might actually be something small that we can do here. Because the purchase of stamps is still a key revenue generator for them. And you can actually get stamps made. TV shows have done this in the past. American Idol sold stamps, and Veep and Full Frontal recently did giveaways. And while it will not come close to raising the $90 billion the Postal Service badly needs, we've actually been working with Stamps.com for weeks to not just do a giveaway, but to produce a run of stamps that are available for you to buy right now. If you go to stamps.com/laststamptonight, you can find postage featuring Chi-John, a Bolivian zebra, Mr. Nutter Butter, and our personal favourite, and now, a stamp. You can buy sheets of these for the next month, and I would really encourage you to do that. They are the perfect way to mail a card that supports the USPS in its time of need, while also saying, I like Last Week Tonight, and I'm sorry I forgot Mother's Day, which you did, you piece of shit. If you like this segment, please buy a stamp and support the Postal Service. If you hated it, buy one anyway and mail me a letter about how much I suck. It's all the same to them. You'd be doing a really nice thing. That's our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night. It's you. I know you. Hi. You're very good at interrupting things. You're very good.
How you doing?